The ship was dying, Aller-Chun could feel it in the way the floor shook. Beneath her feet, she was 7 years old, and she did not understand what was happening, but she knew it was bad. The lights flickered, alarm screamed. Her mother had pushed her into the emergency pod and told her to stay there, to not move, to wait. Then everything went dark. When Ara woke up, she was cold, colder than she had ever been her life. The emergency pod had crashed through the ceiling of some kind of cave. Gray light came through the hole above her. Snow fell softly through the opening. Her arm hurt badly, and when she touched her head, her fingers came back red with blood. She tried to call for her mother, but her voice was weak. No one answered. The planet was called Varith 7. It was a frozen moon far from Earth, far from anywhere. Mining companies had fought over it for years, but no one really lived there. No one except the Veluxi. The Veluxi were small creatures, no bigger than dogs. They had 6 legs and hard shells that shimmered with soft colors like oil on water. They lived in tunnels deep underground where it was warm. They had lived there for thousands of years, long before the ships came from the stars. The galaxy did not care about them. They had no army. They had no money. They had nothing that the powerful species wanted, so they were ignored. On that day, a group of young were exploring the upper tunnels. When they heard the crash, they felt the ground shake. Their leader, a scout named Keth, raised his front legs and clicked a warning. The others stopped behind him. Slowly, carefully, they moved toward the sound. They found the strange metal thing first. It was broken and smoking. Keith had seen pictures of ships before in the old stories. The loud ones from the stars used them to travel between worlds, but the loud ones were dangerous. The elders always said to stay away from them. Then Keth saw the child. She was sitting against the wall of the cave, shaking. Her skin was turning blue from the cold. Blood ran down her face. She looked at the Veluxi with wide, terrified eyes. He did not know what kind of creature she was, but he knew what a child looked like. He knew what fear looked like. He knew what pain looked like. He clicked softly to his companions. They were afraid. What if this was a trap? What if more loud ones came? What if the elders punished them? But Keth looked at the shaking child and he made his choice. He moved toward her slowly. The child screamed and tried to crawl away, but she was too weak. Keth stopped. He lowered his body to the ground, making himself as small as possible. He clicked gently, a sound that Vuxi mothers made to comfort their young. The child stared at him. Her breathing slowed just a little. He clicked again. He reached out one leg very slowly and touched her hand. Her skin was like ice. The child did not pull away. He turned to his companions and gave an order. They would take this child to the hive. The elders would be angry, but Keth did not care. He could not leave her here to die. Together the Veluxi lifted Ara. She was heavy for them, but they were strong. They carried her through the tunnels, deeper and deeper, until the cold faded and warmth surrounded them. The hive was a vast underground city filled with thousands of Vui. When Keth arrived, carrying the strange creature, everyone stopped to stare. Whispers spread like fire. The elders came quickly. Their old shells cracked with age. What have you done? The elder demanded. His name was Vorn, and he had led the hive for 60 years. You have brought a loud one into our home. She is a child, Keth said. She will die without help. That is not our concern. Another elder argued the loud ones have never helped. Us, they take and they destroy. This child's people are no different, but Vaughn looked at the small creature in Keth's arms. Her eyes were closed now. Her breathing was shallow. She was so small, so helpless. Vaughn remembered a time long ago when the mining ships had come. They had poisoned the water in the eastern tunnels. Many Veluxy children had died. No one from the stars had cared, but this child had not poisoned anyone. This child had done nothing wrong. Take her to the healers, Vaughn said quietly. The other elders protested, but Vaughn raised a leg for silence. We are not like them, he said. We do not let children die because of what their parents might have done. That is not who we are. The healers worked through the night. They cleaned the child's wounds with special salves that glowed with soft blue light. They wrapped her in warm moss. They fed her small drops of honey water. When she woke for the first 3 days, Ara cried constantly. She did not understand where she was. She did not understand these strange creatures. She wanted her mother. She wanted to go home on, but the Veluxy did not give up on her. Young ones were curious about her. They would sit near her and watch her with their many eyes. One young, a female named Tila, started bringing Ara small gifts, pretty stones, glowing mushrooms, sweet berries. Slowly, all stopped crying. She started to watch the Veluxy bag. By the 7th day, she smiled for the first time. By the 10th day, she was trying to copy the clicking sounds they made. By the 14th day, she was playing games with the young Veluxy, running through the tunnels, laughing as they chased her. The hive had never heard laughter before. It was a strange sound, but not unpleasant. Some of the elders found themselves clicking in amusement when they heard it. 19 days passed. All grew stronger. She still missed her mother terribly, but she was no longer alone. She had Keth, who visited her every day. She had Tila, who slept curled up beside her every night. She had hundreds of strange, shimmering friends who had given her something she did not expect. They had given her warmth in the coldest place she had ever known. Far above, in the endless black of space, ships were searching. Ara did not know this. She did not know that her mother was alive, crying herself to sleep every night, refusing to give up hope. She only knew that she was safe. She only knew that these creatures, these small beings that everyone in the galaxy ignored, had saved her life, and she would never forget it. Dr. Lin Chun had not slept in 8 days. Her eyes were red. Her hands shook when she held her coffee cup. The officers on the ship had tried to make her rest, but she could not. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her daughter's face. The transport ship Meridian had been carrying 200 people when it was destroyed. The rescue teams had found debris scattered across 1,000,000 kilometers of space. They had found bodies. They had found broken pieces of metal and glass, but they had not found the emergency pods. There was still hope. There had to be hope. Captain Marcus Eulerin stood on the bridge of the rescue ship Resolute. He was a tall man with dark skin and tired eyes. He had led many rescue missions in his career. Most of them ended in sadness, but he had learned long ago not to give up until he had searched every rock, every moon, every piece of floating metal. Sir, his sensor officer said, I'm picking up a faint signal from the 4th moon. It matches the emergency beacon frequency. Lynch Chun was standing nearby. She heard the words and Her heart stopped. Are you sure? Captain Oilerin asked. Yes, sir, it's weak, but it's there. The captain turned to look at Dr. Chun. He saw the desperate hope in her eyes. He nodded. Slowly, set a course for Vareth 7, he ordered. Maximum speed. The moon was a frozen wasteland, white snow covered everything. The wind howled across empty plains. The rescue team landed there. Shuttle near the signal source and found the wreckage of an emergency pod half buried in ice, but the pod was empty. She's not here, one of the Marines said. Maybe she wandered off, maybe he did not finish the sentence. They all knew what he meant. A child could not survive long in this cold. But then another Marine pointed at the ground. Tracks, he said. Look at these tracks. The footprints in the snow were strange. They had too many points, like something with 6 legs had walked there, but mixed with them were smaller prints. Human prints, child-sized. Something took her, Lynch whispered. Her fear and her hope fought inside her chest. Captain Oilerin studied the tracks. They led toward a dark opening in the rocks nearby, a cave. We go in, he said. Stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with. The Marines activated their lights and entered the cave. Dr. Chun followed close behind them, ignoring the captain's orders to stay back. Her daughter might be in there. Nothing could stop her. The cave went down deeper and deeper. The air grew warmer. The walls began to glow with soft, strange light. After an hour of walking, they heard sounds ahead, clicking sounds, movement. The Marines raised their weapons. They emerged into a vast underground chamber. It was like nothing they had ever seen. Thousands of small creatures filled the space there, shells shimmering with beautiful colors. Buildings made of stone and crystal rose. From the floor, lights glowed everywhere. And in the center of it, all surrounded by dozens of the creatures, sat a small human girl with messy hair and a dirty face. All Lin Chun screamed. The girl's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide. Mommy, Lin Chun tried to run forward, but the creatures moved to block her path. They formed a wall between the humans and the child. Their bodies tense, their clicking sounds sharp and warning. The Marines aimed their weapons. Step aside, one of them ordered. Give us the child. But the creatures did not move. They stood their ground, protecting the law with their bodies. They're going to attack, a Marine said. Should we fire? Captain Oilerin held up his hand. Wait. He was watching the creatures carefully. He saw how they positioned themselves. They were not preparing to attack. They were preparing to defend. They were scared, but they would not run. They were protecting the child. Mom, no. Ara suddenly shouted. She pushed through the Veluxy and ran to stand in front of them, her small arms spread wide. Don't hurt them. They're my friends. They saved me. Lin Chun fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Ara, baby, they kept me warm, Mommy. Ara said they gave me food. They played with me. Kath found me in the snow. Ta sleeps next to me every night. They're good. They're so good. Please don't hurt them. Captain Oilerin slowly lowered his weapon. He looked at his Marines. Weapons down, he ordered quietly. Everyone, weapons down. The Marines obeyed. The tension in the chamber began to fade. Lin Chun crawled forward on her knees. All ran to her and they held each other, both crying. The Veluxy watched silently, their clicking sound soft now, almost gentle. One of the creatures approached the captain. It was old. Its Shell cracked with age, Key walked beside it, translating its gestures for the humans. The old one clicked and gestured, Alice still holding her mother. Tried to explain, that's Elder War, she said. He says they knew we were scared of them, they knew other species. From the stars it hurt them before, but they couldn't leave me to die. He says children are precious, all children, it doesn't matter what species. Captain Oilerin looked at the elder for a long moment. He had served in the military for 30 years. He had seen many species across the galaxy. Most of them cared only about power and profit. Most of them would have ignored a dying human child or used her as a bargaining chip, but these small, forgotten creatures had simply helped her because it was right. Tell him, the captain said slowly, that humanity will remember this. Elder Vorn listened to Keth's translation, then he reached into a pouch on his side and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed with soft inner light and images seemed to move inside it. He pressed it into Captain Oilerin's hand. It's a memory stone, Ilara explained. It holds the stories of their ancestors, their history, their most precious thing. He's giving it to you. The captain looked down at the small crystal. He understood what this meant. This was not just a gift, this was trust. This was a hand reaching out across the emptiness of space. I will keep it safe, he said, and I will make sure Earth knows what you have done. Journey back to the ship was slow. Ara did not want to leave her friends. She hugged Kath for a long time. She held Ta and cried. She promised she would come back. She promised she would never forget them. As the shuttle lifted off from the frozen moon, Ara pressed her hand against the window, looking down at the cave entrance where a group of small shimmering creatures watched her go. She did not know it yet, but her story was about to change the galaxy. Captain Oilerin sat in his cabin that night, holding the memory stone in his hands. He thought about the Galaxy. He thought about how the galaxy treated species like them, small, weak, unimportant, but they had done something that many powerful species would never do. They had shown kindness to a stranger. He began to write his report. He chose his words carefully. He knew that this report would go to the highest levels of Earth's government. He knew that what happened next would depend on how people reacted. He hoped that humanity would prove worthy of the galaxy's trust. The video spread across human space like fire. Within hours, billions of people had seen it. A small human girl, thin and dirty but alive, standing with her arms spread wide in front of a group of alien creatures, begging armed soldiers not to hurt her friends. The image of a galaxy gently feeding the child with its delicate legs became the most shared picture in human history. People cried. They shared the story with their families. They talked about it at work, in schools, in churches. For once, the news was not about war or politics or money. It was about something simple and pure. It was about kindness. On the colony world of New Stockholm, an old man watched the video and wept. He had lost his own daughter to illness many years ago. Seeing this child saved by strangers from another species reminded him that there was still good in the universe. On Mars, a group of children started a campaign to send letters to the Vuxi. Within a week they had collected over 10 million messages. On Earth, the government received more communications from citizens in one day than they normally received in a year. Everyone had the same question: What are we going to do for these people who saved our child 3 weeks after the rescue? The United Nations Space Council called an emergency meeting. The Great Chamber in Geneva was filled with representatives from every human colony, every major nation, every powerful organization. Cameras broadcast the proceedings to every corner of human space. Secretary General Adarin Wasu stood at the center podium. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served humanity for 40 years through wars and crises and countless difficult decisions. But today she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt proud. Before we begin, she said, I would like to invite some special guests to speak. A door opened at the side of the chamber. Dr. Lynch walked in holding her daughter's hand. Delara wore a simple blue dress. Her hair was brushed and clean, but she still wore a bracelet made of glowing stones that Tilla had given her. The entire chamber rose to its feet. Applause filled the air. All looked around with wide eyes. She had never seen so many people before. Her mother squeezed her hand and smiled. It's okay, sweetheart, Lynchun whispered. Just tell them about your friends. They walked to the podium. A microphone was lowered for Ara. She looked up at all the serious faces watching her. Hello, she said. Her small voice echoed through the chamber. My name is R. I'm 7 years old. Well, almost 8 now. A few people laughed gently. When my ship crashed, I was really scared. Ara continued. I was cold and I was hurt and I thought I was going to die, but then Keth found me. He's a Veloxy. He has 6 legs and a pretty shiny shell. At first I was scared of him, but he was really nice. He made soft sounds to make me feel better. He carried me to his home. She paused, remembering. Her eyes grew wet. They didn't have much food, but they shared it with me. They kept me warm with their bodies when I was cold at night. The healers fixed my cuts with glowing medicine. Tella became my best friend. She taught me how to play their games. She gave me this bracelet. Ara held up her wrist. The stones glowed softly. Everyone says the Veloxy are small and weak and not important, but they saved me. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know if anyone would come for me. They could have gotten in trouble, but they helped me anyway, because they said children are precious. All children. She looked directly at the Secretary General. Please help them, she said. Please be their friend like they were my friend. The chamber was completely silent. Many of the representatives had tears on their cheeks. Secretary General Nu knelt down, so she was at Har's level. Thank you, Ara, she said softly. You are a very brave girl, and I promise you, we will help them. She stood and turned to face the assembly. Honored representatives, she began, we have heard the testimony of this child. We have seen the evidence of what the Vali did. Now we must decide how humanity will respond. She walked slowly across the stage as she spoke. Let me tell you about the Vui. They are a species of approximately 2 billion individuals living on a single moon in a distant system. They have no military. They have no warships. They have no allies among the great powers of the galaxy. By every measure that the Confederacy uses, they are insignificant, unimportant, disposable. Her voice hardened. But I ask you, what is the true measure of a species? Is it how many ships they have, how many weapons, how much territory they control? She stopped at the center of the stage. Or is it what they do when no One is watching what they do when they find a dying child who is not their own. What they choose when kindness offers no reward. She gestured toward Ara. This child was alone and helpless. The Veloxi had nothing to gain by helping her. They had much to lose. Other species might have ignored her or used her as a bargaining chip or simply let her die. The Veloxi chose differently. They chose compassion. She returned to the podium. Humanity has a long memory. We remember those who helped us. We remember those who hurt us. Today I ask this council to show the galaxy that we remember kindness. She pressed a button and text appeared on the screens around the chamber. I present for your vote the Declaration of Protective Sovereignty. If passed, this document will place the Veloxi species, their home world, their colonies, and their people under the full protection of the United Earth government. Any act of aggression against them will be considered an act of war against humanity itself. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some representatives looked shocked. This was unprecedented. No species had ever been granted such status. Some will say this is too much. The Secretary General continued. Some will say we are being emotional, that we are overreacting. But I say this, if we cannot protect those who protect our children, then what are we fighting for? What is the point of all our power if we do not use it for good? She looked at the representatives one by one. The Vuxi showed us who they are. Now let us show the galaxy who we are. Let us show them that humanity does not forget its friends. The vote was called. One by one, the lights on the board turned green. Every colony, every nation, every representative. The vote was unanimous. Secretary General New smiled. The declaration is passed. From this day forward, the Veloxi are under humanity's protection. May the galaxy take notice. In the viewing gallery, Ara watched the celebration. Below, she did not fully understand what had happened, but she knew it was something good. Her mother held her close. You did it, baby, Lin Chun whispered. You helped your friends. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Great empires watched with confusion and concern. The humans had claimed an entire species as their own. They had declared that an attack on these small, insignificant creatures would bring the wrath of humanity down upon the attacker. It made no sense. There was no profit in it, no strategic advantage. But the Veloxi understood. When Elder Vorn received the news, he gathered his people and told them what the humans had done. Many Veli did not believe it. At first, no one had ever protected them. Before, no one had ever cared, but Voy remembered the small, cold child they had found in the snow. He remembered choosing to help her when it would have been easier to walk away. Kindness, he said to his people, is never wasted. It always comes back. Perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but it comes back. In the tunnels of Varith 7, for the first time in memory, the Veloxi did not feel afraid. 18 months had passed the declaration. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one expected. Human engineers arrived on Vera 7 with equipment and supplies. They helped the Veloxi build better water systems, medical centers, and communication towers. Human teachers came to share knowledge. Human merchants opened trade routes that brought goods the Veloxi had never seen before. For the first time in their history, the Veloxi had friends among the stars, but not everyone was happy about this. The Dreth hegemony was an empire of reptilian warriors. They were tall, cold-blooded creatures with scales of dark green and eyes like yellow fire. For centuries, they had conquered and enslaved weaker species. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. The weak existed to serve the strong. Hyman Vor sat on his throne made of bones and metal. He was old and scarred from many battles. His advisors stood around him, showing him reports and images on glowing screens. The humans have placed warships around verse 7, one advisor said. They patrol the system constantly. How many ships? Vorith asked. 12, my hegemon, a small force. Vor made a sound of contempt. 12 ships to protect a worthless moon full of insects. The humans are fools. Another advisor spoke. Carefully, my HFY, the humans have a reputation. They fight with great fury. When threatened, perhaps we should not provoke them. I do not fear the humans. Vorith growled. They are soft. They waste their strength protecting the weak instead of conquering them. This is stupidity. We will teach them the error of their ways. He gave the order. 40 Dreth warships would travel to Vera 7 for military exercises in unclaimed space. Officially, they would not enter territory, but everyone knew what the message really meant. The humans would back down. They always did, and when they did, the Veluxy would learn that human protection meant nothing. Admiral Chen Lin received a report on her flagship, the carrier Unconquered. She was a small woman with short gray hair and calm eyes. She had served in 3 wars and had never lost a battle. Her crew loved her because she was fair. Her enemies feared her because she was smart. 40 ships, her tactical officer said. They're entering the outer system now. They claim they're here for training exercises. Admiral Chun looked at the display. 40 red dots approached her, 12 blue ones. The math was simple. The Dreth outnumbered her more than 3 to 1. Have they crossed into protected space? She asked. Not yet, Admiral. They're staying just outside the boundary. Then we wait. But keep all weapons ready. The Dreth commander was called Vix. He was young and eager to prove himself. He sent a message to the human fleet on an open channel so that everyone in the sector could hear. Human vessels, he said, you are wasting your time here. These creatures you protect are nothing. They have no value. Leave now and we will not harm you. Stay and you will learn what happens to those who stand in the way of the hegemony. Admiral Chun listened to the message with a slight smile. She had dealt with bullies before. They all sounded the same. She pressed a button and responded on the same open channel. Commander Vix, she said. My name is Admiral Chunwin of the Earth Union Navy. I appreciate your concern for our time, but I must decline your suggestion. She stood up from her chair and walked closer to the camera. 18 months ago, a 7-year-old girl crashed on that moon below us. She was cold, hurt, and alone. The Veluxy found her. They had never seen a human before. They knew nothing about us except that creatures from the stars had hurt them in the past, but they did not leave her to die. They carried her to their home. They healed her wounds. They shared their food. They kept her warm. She paused, letting the words sink in. You ask why? We are here. We are here because we remember kindness. We remember those who protect our children. The Veluxy are under humanity's protection. Now this is not a suggestion. This is not a request. This is a fact. Her voice grew Harder, now I suggest you remember. Something about humanity, we have never lost a war that we chose to fight, we do not abandon our friends, we do not bow to threats. If you want to test our resolve, you are welcome to try, but I promise you, Commander, it will be the last mistake you ever make. She sat back. Down, this channel is now closed. The standoff lasted 4 days. The Dree ships moved closer and closer to the boundary, but did not cross it. They were waiting for the humans to blink to show weakness. Admiral Chun did not blink. On the 3rd day, 60 more Dreth ships arrived. Now the humans faced 100 warships with only 12. The Veluxi watched from below in terror. Eldororn gathered his people and told them to prepare for the worst. Perhaps the humans would leave now. Perhaps the protection had been an empty promise. But the human ships did not move. On the morning of the 4th day, Commander Vix prepared to give the order to cross the boundary. His crews were ready, his weapons were armed. He would destroy the human fleet and teach the galaxy that the Dree hegemony feared nothing. Then his censor officer screamed, ships appearing everywhere. Rix looked at his display in disbelief. Massive signatures were appearing all around his fleet. First 1, then 5, then 20 ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Human ships, a dreadnought twice the size of anything in the Dree fleet, materialized directly behind RX's flagship. Its name was painted on the hull in letters that seemed to burn. Use retribution. More ships kept coming. Carriers, battleships, destroyers. They poured out of hyperspace like an endless tide. When it was over, 107 human warships surrounded the Dreth fleet. They had come from colonies across human space, from Earth, from Mars, from distant stations at the edge of explored territory. Each captain had volunteered for this mission. Each crew had asked to be here. Admiral Chun's voice came over the open channel once more. Commander Vix, she said, I believe you suggested that we should leave. Let me make a counter-suggestion. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw your fleet from this sector, if you are still here. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war. She paused and, Commander, I want to be very clear about something. These ships did not come because they were ordered to. They came because they chose to. Every captain here asked to be part of this mission. Every crew member volunteered. Do you understand what that means? It means that right now you are facing humanity's answer to your threat. All of it. There was silence on the Dree channels. Rix looked at his tactical display. He saw the human ships surrounding him. He saw their weapons locked on his fleet. He saw the crews on their bridges watching and waiting. He thought about what the Admiral had said. These humans had come to fight for a species that could offer them nothing in return. They had come because of kindness shown to a child. For the first time in his life, Commander Rix felt something he had never experienced before. He felt afraid. All ships, he said quietly, reverse course. We are returning to hegemony space. The Dreth fleet withdrew without firing a single shot. On Vera 7, the Veluxi watched the enemy ships disappear into the darkness of space. They watched the human fleet take up protective positions around their world. They had never been defended before. They had never mattered enough for anyone to protect. Eldororn stood at the entrance of the deepest tunnel, looking up at the stars through an old telescope. He saw the human ships moving through the sky like guardian angels. They stayed, he whispered. They really stayed beside him, a young Veluxy named Tila clicked softly. Why? She asked. We are small, we are weak. Why do they protect us? Vor thought about the question for a long time because he finally said, once upon a time we protected one of their children, and humans never forget. 10 years had passed since the standoff with the Dreadgeman. The galaxy had changed more in that decade than in the previous century. Vera 7 was unrecognizable. The frozen surface now had domed cities, where humans and Vexi lived side by side. The underground tunnels had grown into vast chambers filled with light and life. Schools taught children of both species together. Hospitals used the combined knowledge of human medicine and healing to save lives that neither could save alone. Young Value traveled to Earth on scholarship programs. They walked through human cities with wonder. In their many eyes, they ate human food, learned human languages, made human friends. Some fell in love with the great oceans, others spent hours in libraries reading books about human history. Human children traveled to V7 for exchange programs. They learned to click and whistle in the Veluxy language. They explored the ancient tunnels and heard stories that were thousands of years old. They discovered that these small shimmering creatures had poetry and music and dreams just like them. Two species that had been strangers were becoming family. All Chan was 17 now. She had grown tall like her mother. Her hair was long and dark, but she still wore the bracelet of glowing stones that Tila had given her all those years ago. She never took it off. She had spent the last 3 years studying. She learned everything about the Veluxy, their history, their culture, their language, their fears and hopes. She became the first human to speak the clicking language perfectly. The Luxy elders said that when she talked they forgot she was human. And now she was returning to Var 7 as the youngest ambassador in human history. Her shuttle descended through the atmosphere. Through the window she could see the domes glittering in the pale sunlight. She could see the entrance to the old tunnels where she had once been carried as a chain, dying child. Her heart was full of memories. Thousands of Veluxy waited at the landing pad. They had come from all over the moon to welcome her home. Yes, home. That was what this place had become for her. Earth was where she was born, but Vera 7 was where she had been given a second chance at life. The shuttle door opened. Iris stepped out into the cold air. For a moment there was silence. Then a wave of clicking sounds rose from the crowd. It was applause in the Veluxy way, thousands of voices joining together in a rhythm of welcome and joy. AR smiled and clicked back a greeting. The crowd responded with even more enthusiasm, a human speaking their language, honoring their ways. It meant everything to them. A path opened through the crowd and 2 figures walked toward her. The first was Tila. She was fully grown now, her shell gleaming with beautiful purple and gold colors. She had become a teacher, helping young learn about the wider galaxy. When she saw Lara, she made a sound that was halfway between a click and a cry. They embraced, human arms wrapped around the hard shell. 6 legs reached up to hold her close. They stayed like that for a long time. 2 friends reunited after years apart. I missed you, Ilara whispered in the clicking language. I missed you more, Tila replied. Every day I looked at the stars and wondered When you would come back. I'm here now. Aurora said, I'm not leaving again. Behind Tella stood a much older Value. His shell was cracked and faded with age. His movements were slow, but his eyes were still sharp, still wise, elder. Var thought he had led his people through the most transformative decade in their history. He had watched them go from a forgotten species to partners with one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Now he was old and he knew his time was ending, but he had lived long enough to see something he never thought possible. He had lived long enough to see his people free from fear. Alla knelt before him, bringing her face down to his level. Elder Vaughn, she said softly, I have something for you. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed within her light, and images seemed to move inside it. This is a memory stone, she said, but not like yours. This one holds the memories of humanity, our history, our wars and our peace, our failures and our hopes, our stories of love and loss and courage. Everything we are. She pressed it into his old hands. 10 years ago you gave one of your memory stones to Captain Oilerin. You trusted us with your ancestors' stories. Now I give you ours. A species memory for a species memory. Trust for a trust. Vaughn looked down at the crystal. He could feel it vibrating gently in his hands. Inside were the dreams of billions of humans stretching back thousands of years. He looked up at Aller with tears in his many eyes. When I ordered my people to save you, he said slowly, many thought I was making a mistake. They said the loud ones from the stars could not be trusted. They said we would regret helping you. He held the crystal close to his chest. I told them that kindness is never wasted. I told them that warmth shared will return someday. I believed it, but I did not know if it was true. His voice cracked with emotion. Now I know. He reached up and touched his face with one gentle leg. You humans taught us something important, he said. You taught us that we were never too small to matter. You taught us that what we did mattered. A small act of kindness to one child changed everything for our entire species. He turned to face the watching crowd. Let this be remembered, he announced in a strong voice. Let our children and our children's children know this story. We were small and we were afraid. The stars were cold and full of danger, but we found a suffering child and we chose to help her. We gave her warmth when she was cold. We gave her food when she was hungry. We gave her love when she was alone. His voice rose with power and pride, and the humans did not forget. They came back for her. They protected us. They called us friends. They called us family. They taught the galaxy that kindness is not weakness. They taught the universe that compassion has power. He pointed at the sky. Look at the stars. Now we are no longer afraid. Human ships guard our skies. Human teachers fill our schools. Human friends live in our homes. And why? Because once in a cold cave on a frozen moon we chose to be kind. Crowd erupted in clicking cheers. Sound echoed across the landing pad and through the tunnels and domes of the entire moon. All stood beside Elder Vaughn, looking out at the celebration. She thought about everything that had happened. A ship crash, a cold cave, a choice made by creatures who had every reason to walk away. That choice had changed history. Her transl spoke quietly beside her. Ambassador, there's a communication from Earth. The Secretary General wants to address the ceremony. Ara nodded. A holographic image appeared above the crowd. Secretary General Adara Nuasu had grown older, but her eyes still burned with purpose. Citizens of Vareth 7, she said. Humans and value alike. 10 years ago, we made a promise. We said that the Veluxi would be under our protection forever. Today, I'm happy to say that our promise has grown into something more. It has grown into partnership, into friendship, into family. She smiled. The universe is vast and often cold, but warmth can be shared, kindness can spread. What began with one child and one choice has become a bond that will last for generations across the galaxy. Other species were watching this broadcast. They saw the humans and Veluxi celebrating together. They saw what was possible when different peoples chose to trust each other. Some of them began to wonder, perhaps kindness was not foolishness after all. Perhaps there was another way to survive in the cold universe. In the years that followed, 16 more species would join what became known as the Covenant of Warmth. Each one had been small and afraid. Each one had been ignored or threatened by the great powers, and each one found protection and friendship with humanity. And the Vuxi, the mighty empires, watched with growing concern. They had always believed that the galaxy belonged to the strong. They had always believed that compassion was weakness. But now they saw something new rising among the stars, not an empire built on conquest and fear, something else, something they did not understand. And family. And families, they were beginning to learn, would fight harder and longer and more fiercely than any empire ever could on Vareth 7. As the celebration continued into the night, Ara and Tila walked through the old tunnels together. They passed the place where KTH had first found the dying human child. Ki himself had passed away 3 years ago, but his memory lived on in every story the Veluxi told. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Keth had walked away that day? Tella asked. Aller thought about it. I would have died, she said simply, and none of this would exist. Our two species might never have become friends. One small choice, Ta said, one moment of kindness, it changed everything. All nodded. That's what I want people to remember. You don't have to be powerful to make a difference. You don't have to be important. Sometimes all it takes is being willing to help someone who needs it. They stopped at the entrance to the tunnel, looking out at the stars. Galaxy is still cold, all said. There are still cool species out there. There's still suffering and war and injustice, but every time someone chooses kindness, the universe gets a little warmer. She took Tella's hand in hers. Your people taught us that, and we will never forget it. Above them, stars shone bright and eternal, but they no longer seemed so cold. They seemed like distant candles waiting to be gathered together, waiting for someone to share their warmth.